Rachel, as we look at logistics now in 2021 compared to 2019, what does your strategy and coaching look like behind the scenes for your chancellor? And what is all Teresa, like if we go to Twitter or different platforms versus what are you and your team creating?
Yeah, so we are really lucky that I do not have to run any of her accounts. I certainly help her. I tag her in things that I think she will like to share. And my role in her social media presence is making sure that she is well represented and represented in the ways that fit her voice and her vision on our institutional channels. So if you go to @Teresa Riley on any of those platforms, you will see her exactly as she is. And I think that is so important. That has shaped so much of how I coach other professionals and how I, think about the role of a chancellor on social. Like she said, we went through some difficult conversations in those first few months and then straight into a pandemic. So looking back, it really allowed the two of us to be close and to be vulnerable with each other and deep dive into what drives us, what we value, why we're here in higher ed, but why we're here at UAFS. So I know her as a person. And I genuinely like her as a person and I respect her as a person. And I have a pretty good understanding of her needs. And so now, as we're in 2021, I am a little more able than back in 2019 to guess what she needs. So if I see a tweet that I think, oh, maybe she needs to just like FYI on this, I'll just send it to her on Twitter in a DM. Here you go, just FYI. I also know when something will need to be discussed, when we need to say, hey, can we set a meeting? Can we talk about this? And set a little more time to strategize or discuss. And now, 2 years down, we really get to start doing some cool stuff. So we get to start looking at strategic plans and capital campaigns and doing some like long-term planning. And that looks a little different than that, hey, here's an emergency, or hey, we're going into a pandemic, or let's have an after action review of something, that's been devastating to our campus, like having to shut things down. We get to look at the future. And so that's really exciting as a communicator to be ready to, move not past those crisis communications, but to see a path forward and the light ahead.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the transition to being proactive and strategic in our communication versus being reactive to the situation around us. So I think it's just a tremendous opportunity to work together on that, envisioning our future as an organization. And one of the ways that, I'll just brag on Rachel, if I could have a minute to do that here, although I'd do it all day if you'd let me, is that when I arrived, one of the things, Rachel's far exceeding any position description anybody ever thought of. And one of the areas that I heard a lot about while I was interviewing for the position and when I first arrived was that people here are incredibly humble. And I always describe it as hiding their light under a bushel. And so as a result, they're really not out telling our story because they're afraid that sounds braggadocious. And so I know that our marketing and communication professionals know differently, and they had established this really amazing campaign around our pride and we're the lions, and had a lot of imagery to that, had built a really great campaign of it. And one of the things that I think went with my arrival, it meant some chancellor investment into our branding, marketing. So truly, I know my job. As chancellor, you make the resources happen and then you get out of the way of the great people. Like that's what you should do. And so it was amazing that Rachel and the entire team in marketing communication, university advancement, all of these different groups came together and formed a new brand pillars, common language that we could use to explain what we do that is transformative and special at this place, while still understanding that people are humble about it. I'm not even remotely humble about it. Like I will brag all day long. I'm the biggest cheerleader. And in some ways that's what I'm paid to do. But I'm truly bragging about the great outcomes of the education here because of people like Rachel and the rest of the team who do the hard work. So it's been amazing to launch brand new websites because we have a brand new web platform. In my 2 years, new brand pillars, all new marketing materials, getting that training out about how to communicate and tell our story to a variety of campus constituents and community constituents, and then ultimately to roll out a brand new web platform and training the users now so that we're decentralizing our website. Wow. So for those of you who are on this call, you're listening to all of that, you can imagine, oh my God, all of that in 2 years. And they've managed to accomplish all of that while using all these different modalities and PR. Everything to do with our press, our journalists who are constantly inquiring about things for the institution. And so whether that's print media or it's our television stations, radio stations, to manage all of that as well. It's an amazing amount of coordination that goes into it. So I respect each and every one of you who are doing that work, because this is not easy. And it is real easy for someone like me to get on social media and shoot my mouth off. And so what Rachel hasn't said is that we're close enough that if I were to be out doing something, she would absolutely be able to redirect and say, maybe we shouldn't respond to that one. Please, for the love of all that is good, please don't do that, which has been helpful. You have to have that level of relationship and trust. So, okay, my bragging about Rachel, I'll conclude it. For now.
No, I think I'm sure it means a lot to Rachel, but also to those tuning in that may not receive as much thank you, let alone the loud praises that you give to everyone in this industry. You can also, just tell from, your groundings in your comm major to the priorities as a chancellor is about branding and communication and relationship building.